The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Before anyone could react, the bride-to-be's hand was twisted in the black waitress's hair, yanking her head back so hard you could hear the gasp of pain echo through the ballroom.
Go back to whatever slum you crawled from!
She hissed, her voice dripping with venom. 300 of Seoul's most powerful people watched in stunned silence. But what they didn't know, what the bride-to-be didn't know, was that 3 years ago, this waitress had taken a bullet for the man standing 10 feet away, her fiancé, the Korean Mafia boss who was about to make a choice that would destroy everything. What he did next didn't just end the engagement, it started a war. Before we dive into how this night ended in bloodshed, smash that like button and subscribe to see how far a man will go when someone touches what's his. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The chandeliers hanging from the vaulted ceiling of the Park Estate's grand ballroom sparkled like captured starlight, each crystal prism scattering rainbow fragments across the polished marble floor. Seoul's most powerful families had gathered for what society columns were already calling the event of the decade. The engagement party of Taesung Park and Isabella Choi, a union that would merge political influence with underground empire. Taesung stood near the champagne fountain, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, constantly scanning the room. At 32, he'd spent the last 8 years transforming his father's brutal legacy into something more sophisticated, more untouchable. The old man had ruled through fear and violence. Taesung preferred leverage and information. His tailored Tom Ford suit, midnight blue with subtle silk lapels, whispered wealth without screaming it. His black hair was styled back from his face, revealing features that were handsome in a severe way. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that gave away nothing. Taesung-ah! A rotund man with silver hair approached, arms spread wide. Director Choi, Isabella's father, and one of the National Assembly's most influential members. My future son-in-law, are you enjoying your party? Taesung accepted the older man's embrace with practiced warmth. Director Choi, the arrangements are perfect. Isabella has exquisite taste. She gets that from her mother. Director Choi laughed, the sound booming across conversations nearby. Speaking of which, have you seen your bride-to-be? She was looking for you earlier. I'm sure she'll find me when she's ready, Taesung replied smoothly. His gaze had already returned to its previous trajectory, tracking movement near the service entrance. Director Choi followed his eyes and frowned slightly. The catering staff seems competent enough. I recommended the company myself. Very discreet, very professional. Indeed. Taesung lifted his champagne glass to his lips but didn't drink. What Director Choi didn't know, what no one in this glittering assembly knew, was that Taesung had personally approved every member of tonight's service staff. More specifically, he'd ensured one particular person would be working this event. Jasmine Williams moved through the crowd with fluid grace, a silver tray balanced perfectly on one hand. Her dark skin seemed to absorb and reflect the chandelier light simultaneously, giving her an almost ethereal quality against the crisp white uniform all servers wore. She kept her eyes down, professional and unobtrusive, as she offered canapés to clusters of Seoul's elite. Taesung watched her navigate around a group of businessmen, saw the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly when one of them made a comment she pretended not to hear. She was 25 now. The last time he'd seen her up close was 6 months ago, from across a coffee shop in Gangnam. Before that, a year. He kept his distance. It was safer that way. For both of them. Taesung, Isabella's voice cut through his thoughts like a crystal knife. She materialized at his side, her arms sliding possessively through his. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Isabella Choi was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful, polished, pristine, perfectly assembled. Her white Valentino gown had been custom-made in Milan, her jewelry was vintage Cartier, and her hair fell in glossy black waves that had required 3 hours and 2 stylists to achieve. She was 28, educated at Oxford, and utterly convinced the world existed to serve her desires. I've been right here, Taesung said, his voice carrying just enough affection to satisfy propriety. Well, you could at least pretend to mingle with our guests. Father's business associates are asking about the wedding date. She lowered her voice. And I need you to smile more. You look like you're attending a funeral, not our engagement party. Taesung manufactured a smile. Better? Marginally. Isabella's eyes swept the room, cataloging who had arrived, who was wearing what, who was talking to whom. Her gaze snagged on something, and her expression hardened. Is that waitress staring at you? Taesung didn't need to look to know who she meant. I haven't noticed. Well, I have. Isabella's perfectly manicured nails dug into his arm. She's been watching you all night. It's completely inappropriate. I'm sure you're imagining things. I don't imagine things, Taesung. Isabella's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I notice everything. That's how I've survived in this world. Before he could respond, Isabella's mother descended upon them with 3 other women in tow, all demanding Isabella's attention regarding flower arrangements. Isabella shot him one last warning look before allowing herself to be pulled away. Taesung exhaled slowly. This was going to be a long night. Across the ballroom, Jasmine set down her empty tray at the service station and picked up a fresh one loaded with champagne flutes. Her hands were steady, her expression neutral, but her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd known he would be here, obviously, but seeing him in person after all this time was different than she'd anticipated. 3 years. 3 years since that night in New York. She'd been 22, working double shifts as a waitress at an upscale Manhattan restaurant to pay for her criminology degree at John Jay. It was supposed to be a normal Friday night. Busy, exhausting, but normal. Then 6 men had walked in at 11 p.m., speaking Korean, and her manager had seated them at a corner table. She'd noticed them immediately, not just because they were impeccably dressed, but because of the way they moved. Like predators. Like men accustomed to violence. She'd served them water, taken their orders, stayed professional. Halfway through their meal, 3 more men had entered. These ones didn't sit down. They'd pulled guns. Everything happened in seconds. Shouting in Korean. Chairs scraping. The crack of gunfire that sent her ears ringing. She'd seen the gun swing toward the man in the midnight blue suit. Taesung, though she didn't know his name then. And her body had moved before her brain caught up. She'd crashed into him, sending them both to the floor. Heat had exploded across her shoulder, then darkness. When she woke up 3 days later in a private hospital room, Taesung had been sitting in the chair beside her bed. You saved my life, he'd said in perfect English, his voice quiet and serious. Why? She'd stared at him, still groggy from painkillers. I didn't think, I just moved. You took a bullet for a stranger. I took a bullet that was going to kill someone, that's different. Something had shifted in his expression then. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're studying criminology, your manager told me. Is he okay? Is anyone hurt? Everyone else is fine. The men who attacked us are dead. He'd said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. You need to finish your degree. I need to pay for it first. Medical bills, student loans, are handled. He'd pulled out a business card, set it on her bedside table. When you graduate, call this number. I have a position for you in Seoul. Security consulting. She'd laughed, thinking it was a joke or delirium. But the card had still been there when she was discharged, and when she'd graduated 18 months later, drowning in debt that had mysteriously been paid off. She'd called the number. 2 weeks later, she'd been on a plane to Seoul. For the first 6 months, she'd worked in legitimate security, consulting for Park Industries' shipping operations, analyzing routes and protocols. The pay had been extraordinary, the work had been interesting, and Taesung had kept his distance, communicating only through intermediaries. Then she'd started noticing things. Patterns in shipping manifests that didn't quite add up. Meetings that happened in the margins of official business. The way certain employees deferred to Taesung with a fear that went beyond normal corporate hierarchy. She'd done her research, learned about the Park family's history, the rumors, the whispered allegations that never quite made it to court. When she'd confronted Taesung in his office 14 months ago, he hadn't lied. Yes, he'd said simply. My family's business has 2 sides. You've been working on the legitimate one. And the other side? You don't want to know. Then I should quit. You should. He'd looked at her with those unreadable eyes. But you won't. Because you're curious. Because you see patterns and you need to understand them. Because you're one of the smartest people I've ever met, and you're wasted on shipping schedules. He'd been right. She hadn't quit. Instead, she'd been gradually, carefully brought into the real work. Analysis. Intelligence. Never anything violent, never anything that crossed her moral lines, but enough to make her complicit. Enough to make her valuable. Enough to make her dangerous to him. Which was why, 6 months ago, Taesung had ended it. No explanation, just a reassignment to a consulting firm that contracted with Park Industries. Same pay, different chain of command, distance. And now she was serving champagne at his engagement party because the catering company had hired her for extra weekend work, and she'd been too proud to turn down a shift when she saw the Park estate on the schedule. "Excuse me, miss?" An older woman in a peacock blue gown gestured to Jasmine's tray. "I'll have one of those." Jasmine smiled politely and offered the champagne, then continued circulating. She could feel eyes on her occasionally, the way she always did in spaces like this, where she was often the only black woman in the room. Seoul had been an adjustment in many ways. She'd learned to navigate the stares, the comments, the assumptions. Most days it was manageable. Tonight felt different, more exposed. She glanced up and accidentally made eye contact with Taesung across the room. For a fraction of a second, something passed between them. Acknowledgement, warning, she couldn't tell. Then Isabella appeared at his side again, and Jasmine quickly looked away. She needed to get through this shift and get out. The evening progressed with excruciating slowness. Jasmine kept to the periphery, serving drinks, clearing plates, staying invisible. Isabella gave a speech about love and destiny that made Jasmine's stomach turn. Director Choi toasted to family and future. Taesung said all the right things with a smile that never reached his eyes. Around 10 p.m., Jasmine was carrying a tray of wine glasses through a particularly dense cluster of guests when someone bumped her from behind. The tray tilted, and though she caught it, one glass toppled, splashing red wine across the marble floor, and onto the hem of Isabella's white Valentino gown. The conversation around them died instantly. Jasmine froze, the tray still in her hands, staring at the spreading crimson stain. "I'm so sorry, You clumsy bitch!" Isabella's voice was shrill, sharp enough to cut through the sudden silence. She stared down at her dress in horror, then up at Jasmine with pure venom. "Do you have any idea how much this gown costs?" "Ma'am, I apologize. Someone bumped me, and—" "I don't care about your excuses." Isabella took a step forward, her face flushed with rage. "You've ruined my dress. You've ruined my party." Jasmine set the tray down on a nearby table, her hands steady despite her racing heart. "I'll pay for the cleaning, or replacement if—" "You?" Isabella laughed, the sound cruel and mocking. "You couldn't afford to clean this dress with a year's salary. Look at you." Her eyes raked over Jasmine with contempt. "What are you even doing in this country? Did you think you could just come here and—" "Isabella." Taesung's voice cut through her tirade, low and warning. He'd appeared at the edge of the circle that had formed around them. "It was an accident." "An accident?" Isabella whirled on him. "She's been staring at you all night, and now she conveniently spills wine on me?" This was deliberate. "That's not true," Jasmine said quietly. "I didn't even know you were behind me until—" "Shut up!" Isabella's hand shot out, grabbed a fistful of Jasmine's hair and yanked hard. "You don't speak unless I tell you to speak." Pain exploded across Jasmine's scalp. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She could feel tears spring to her eyes, but she refused to cry out, refused to give Isabella the satisfaction. "You need to go back to whatever slum you crawled out of," Isabella hissed, her face inches from Jasmine's. "We don't want your kind here, ruining our events, thinking you belong in our world." She yanked harder, forcing Jasmine's head down. "You're nothing, do you understand? Nothing. Let her go." Taesung's voice had changed. Gone was the smooth diplomat, the charming air. This was something else entirely. Something cold and deadly. Isabella didn't seem to notice. "I want her fired. I want her arrested. I said let her go." Taesung moved forward, and suddenly his hand was on Isabella's wrist, his grip tight enough to make her gasp. Now. Isabella released Jasmine's hair, stumbling back. Tae-sung, what are you? Apologize. The ballroom had gone utterly silent. Hundreds of eyes watched, mouths open in shock. Isabella stared at him in disbelief. Apologize? To her? Have you lost your mind? Apologize for putting your hands on her. Apologize for your racist comments. Apologize for being a disgrace. Each word was clipped, precise, and sharp as a blade. Excuse me. Isabella's voice rose to a near shriek. She ruined my dress. She spilled wine because someone bumped her in a crowded room. You grabbed her hair and degraded her in front of everyone here. Those things are not equivalent. Taesung's eyes were ice. Apologize, or this engagement ends right now. Director Choi pushed through the crowd, his face red. Taesung, you can't be serious. My daughter is understandably upset. Your daughter is a bigot who just assaulted someone, in my home, at an event I'm hosting. Taesung didn't take his eyes off Isabella. I'm waiting. Isabella's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You're defending her? Some random waitress who... She's not random. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Isabella went very still. What? Taesung turned to face the crowd, his posture commanding, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. 3 years ago, I was in New York on business. There was an attack. Men with guns, targeting me. This woman, Jasmine Williams, threw herself in front of a bullet meant for me. She nearly died saving my life. Jasmine's breath caught. What was he doing? I brought her to Seoul, Taesung continued. I paid for her recovery, her education, and offered her a position in my company. She's one of the most brilliant security analysts I've ever worked with. She's been an invaluable asset to Park Industries. He looked directly at Isabella. And you just assaulted her while calling her racial slurs because she accidentally spilled wine on your dress. The silence was deafening. Isabella's face had gone white. You brought her here? You've been keeping her near you all this time? I've been honoring a debt I could never repay. That's not honoring a debt. Isabella's voice cracked. You're in love with her. I'm in love with my integrity, Taesung said coldly. Something you clearly lack. Isabella laughed, high and slightly unhinged. Integrity? You're a criminal, Taesung. Your family's fortune is built on blood and corruption, and you're lecturing me about integrity? Yes, Taesung said simply, because even in my world there are lines we don't cross. Racism is one of them. Assault is another. You crossed both tonight. Director Choi grabbed Taesung's arm. Think about what you're doing. This alliance between our families, the business deals, the political connections. You throw that away over a waitress? Taesung removed the director's hand from his arm with deliberate care. She's not a waitress. She's the woman who saved my life. And yes, I would throw away 1,000 alliances before I let that go unpunished in my own home. He turned back to Isabella, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out the engagement ring she'd given him to wear, a platinum band with the Choi family crest. He held it out to her. We're done. The engagement is off. You and your family need to leave. Isabella stared at the ring, then at him, tears streaming down her face. You can't do this. My father will. Your father will do nothing, Taesung said quietly, because he needs me more than I need him. And he knows it. Director Choi's face had gone from red to purple. This is a mistake, Taesung. A grave mistake. You have no idea what you're starting. Don't I? Taesung's smile was razor thin. I've spent 8 years building something stronger than my father's empire. You think I'm afraid of you? Of your political connections? He gestured to the crowd. Everyone here knows what you are, Director. What your family does. The bribes, the backdoor deals, the favors for organized crime. The only difference between us is that I'm honest about what I am. He turned to address the entire ballroom. This party is over. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the remainder of your evening elsewhere. People began moving immediately, the crowd fragmenting into hushed conversations and hurried exits. Director Choi grabbed Isabella's arm, pulling her toward the door while she continued to cry and protest. Within minutes, the grand ballroom had emptied, leaving only staff and a handful of Taesung's closest associates. And Jasmine, still standing where Isabella had grabbed her, her hand pressed to her aching scalp, trying to process what had just happened. Taesung walked over to her slowly, his expression unreadable once more. Are you all right? Am I all right? Jasmine's voice came out higher than intended. What the hell was that? That was me ending a business arrangement that should have ended months ago. By revealing my entire history, by telling everyone, she gestured helplessly at the empty room. You just put a target on my back. Do you understand that? I do. Then why? Taesung was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 years ago, you didn't hesitate. You didn't calculate the risks or weigh the consequences. You just moved. You saved my life without thinking about what it might cost you. His eyes met hers. Tonight, I return the favor. This isn't the same thing, isn't it? He moved closer. Close enough that she could see the muscle working in his jaw. You've been walking on eggshells in this city because of me, hiding who you are, what you mean, staying in the shadows because I was too much of a coward to acknowledge what I owed you, what you deserved. What I deserved was to not get involved with a mafia boss in the first place, Jasmine shot back. I should have just taken the payment and stayed in New York. But you didn't. No, I didn't. She closed her eyes. And now what? Isabella's father is going to come after you. After us. You just destroyed a political alliance over a glass of wine. I destroyed an alliance over racism and assault, Taesung corrected. The wine was just the catalyst. Semantics. Truth. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched the spot where Isabella had grabbed her hair. Does it hurt? The unexpected gentleness in his voice almost broke her. I've had worse. I know. You took a bullet for me. You keep bringing that up. Because it's the most important thing anyone's ever done for me. His hand dropped. And I've spent 3 years trying to pay that debt from a distance. Keeping you safe meant keeping you away from me. But tonight proved that doesn't work. They'll target you anyway, just for being associated with me. So we might as well stop pretending. Jasmine opened her eyes. Stop pretending what? That you're just an employee? That I haven't thought about you every day for 3 years? That seeing you in danger tonight didn't make me want to burn down everything I've built if it meant keeping you safe? Her breath caught. Taesung, I'm not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I know what I am. What my life is. You deserve better than this world. But I need you to know that tonight wasn't about politics or strategy. It was about you. It's always been about you. Jasmine stared at him, her mind reeling. 3 years of carefully maintained distance, of professional boundaries, of pretending that night in New York hadn't changed everything. And now he was standing in front of her, having just imploded his engagement and his political future, telling her it was all for her. You're insane, she whispered. Probably. You just made an enemy of one of the most powerful families in Seoul. Not the first time. They'll come after you. After me. Let them. His voice was steel. I've been playing their games, following their rules, building alliances I despised for 8 years. I'm done. If they want a war, they'll get one. Over me? Over principle. Over refusing to compromise on the things that matter. He took a breath. But yes, over you. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes, and she blinked them back furiously. This is crazy. This whole night is crazy. I know. What happens now? Now? Taesung glanced around the empty ballroom, at the abandoned champagne glasses and wilting flowers. Now we prepare. The Choi family won't take this insult lying down. They'll make moves, probably within the next 48 hours. We need to secure our assets, reinforce our alliances, and make sure you're protected. I can protect myself. I know you can. But you shouldn't have to do it alone. He met her eyes. If you want to leave, go back to New York, start over somewhere they can't reach you, I'll arrange it. New identity, money, everything you need. I won't hold you to any debt or obligation. Is that what you want? What I want, Taesung said slowly, is for you to be safe and happy, even if that means never seeing you again. Jasmine thought about the last 3 years, the careful distance, the professional emails, the way he'd watched her from across rooms but never approached. She'd told herself it was better this way. Safer. Smarter. But safety hadn't made her happy, and smart hadn't stopped her from thinking about him. "I'm not running," she said firmly. "I didn't run 3 years ago, and I'm not starting now." Something flickered in Taesung's expression. Relief? Maybe? Or hope? "You understand what you're choosing? This won't be easy. The Choi family has connections everywhere. They'll try to destroy you just to hurt me. Then I guess we'd better be smarter than them." Jasmine straightened her shoulders, ignoring the lingering ache in her scalp. "I'm a security analyst, remember? One of the best you've ever worked with. So let's analyze the threat and neutralize it." A small smile tugged at the corner of Taesung's mouth. "There's the woman who tackled me in a restaurant. She never left. She was just waiting for the right moment. And this is it? Apparently." Jasmine looked down at her wine-stained uniform, then back up at him. "Though I should probably change first. Hard to plan a counterattack while dressed like a waitress." "There's a guest room upstairs. I'll have some clothes brought up." "Your clothes? Unless you'd prefer to raid Isabella's closet. Though I suspect she took everything when she left." "Despite everything," Jasmine laughed. The sound surprised her, bubbling up from somewhere she'd kept locked down tight. "Your clothes are fine." They stood there for a moment, the ballroom vast and empty around them, the chandeliers still sparkling overhead like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The carefully constructed walls between them had just come crashing down, and there was no going back. "Taesung?" Jasmine said quietly. "Yes?" "Thank you for standing up for me. Thank you for making it worth it." He gestured toward the grand staircase. "Come on, we have a lot of work to do, and I suspect we're running out of time." As they walked through the silent ballroom, Jasmine's mind was already racing ahead, cataloging threats and resources, calculating risks and contingencies. This was what she was good at. Finding patterns, solving puzzles, turning chaos into strategy. But beneath the analytical thinking, beneath the professional focus, something else stirred. Something she'd been denying for 3 years. She glanced at Taesung's profile as they climbed the stairs, saw the tension in his jaw, the weight of the decision he'd just made settling onto his shoulders. He'd chosen her. Over politics, over power, over the safe path. Now she had to make sure they both survived what came next. The guest room was elegant and understated, decorated in shades of cream and navy. Taesung left her there with a promise to return in 20 minutes, and Jasmine immediately went to work. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through encrypted channels and security feeds she still had access to from her time at Park Industries. The night's events would already be spreading through Seoul's elite circles. Phones would be buzzing, alliances recalculating. Director Choi would be making calls, calling in favors, marshaling resources. Isabella would be crying or raging or both. And somewhere in the shadows, other players would be watching, waiting to see how this shift in the power structure might benefit them. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "It's me," Taesung's voice called. "Come in." He entered carrying a neat stack of clothing, black pants, a simple gray sweater, even socks. "These should fit well enough." "Thanks." Jasmine took them, then hesitated. "Are we alone in the house?" "No, my security team is here, along with a few trusted advisors. They're setting up in my office." He paused. "Why?" "Because we need to talk strategy before we walk into that room. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with, who your enemies are, what resources the Choi family has, what our vulnerabilities are." "All right." Taesung pulled a chair over from the desk and sat down. "What do you want to know?" Jasmine began changing, keeping her back to him. It should have felt awkward, but somehow it didn't. They'd moved past normal boundaries the moment he'd defended her in front of Seoul's elite. "Start with Director Choi. What's his primary source of power?" "Information and connections. He sits on 4 major committees in the National Assembly: finance, intelligence, legislation, and ethics." Taesung's voice was clinical, detached. "Which is ironic, given that he's deeply corrupt. He takes bribes from multiple organizations, including mine, in exchange for advance warning on investigations, favorable legislation, and protection from prosecution. What's his relationship with law enforcement? Complex. He has allies in the prosecutor's office and the police commissioner's office, but also enemies. People who've been waiting for him to make a mistake big enough to bring him down. Jasmine pulled on the sweater, then turned to face him. And you just gave them ammunition. Possibly, if we play this right. Taesung leaned back in his chair. Director Choi's weakness is his pride. He can't tolerate public humiliation, and tonight I humiliated him in front of everyone who matters. He'll want revenge, but he'll also want to save face. So he'll strike back hard and fast. Most likely within 24 hours. What forms could that take? Taesung considered. Legal attacks. Fraud investigations into park industries, tax audits, regulatory violations. He could try to freeze our assets or expose our less legitimate operations. Political isolation, turning our allies against us, destroying our reputation. Or, he paused, direct violence. Against you or against me? Both. Though you're the easier target right now. Jasmine nodded slowly. Then we need to make me harder to target. And we need to go on offense before he can consolidate his position. What are you thinking? You said Director Choi has enemies in law enforcement, people waiting for him to slip up. Jasmine began pacing, her mind working through possibilities. Tonight, he revealed his true character to hundreds of witnesses. His daughter assaulted someone while making racist statements at a public event, and he defended her. That's the kind of thing that could sink a political career if the right people decided to pursue it. You want to leak what happened tonight? I want to control the narrative before he does. Right now, he's probably spinning this as you having a breakdown or being manipulated. We need to get our version out first, the truth. That Isabella attacked me, that you defended me, that you ended the engagement on principle. Taesung was quiet for a moment. That exposes you even more. I'm already exposed. Might as well make it count. Jasmine stopped pacing and looked at him directly. You have media connections, right? Journalists who owe you favors? Several. Good. We give them the story, complete with witness statements if possible. Frame it as a stand against racism and violence. Make Director Choi and Isabella the villains. Force them to play defense instead of offense. That's risky. It puts you in the spotlight. Everything about this situation is risky. At least this way we control the story. Jasmine crossed her arms. What about his other vulnerabilities? The bribes, the corruption. Can we expose that? Possibly, but it would mean exposing my own illegal activities as well. Mutually assured destruction. Unless we're smart about it. What if we fed information to his enemies anonymously? No direct connection to you, just strategic leaks that happen to coincide with tonight's events. Taesung's eyes sharpened. You want to orchestrate his downfall? I want to make sure he can't come after us, and if that means using the system against him, then yes. Jasmine met his gaze. You said you were done playing their games. This is what that looks like. No more alliances with corrupt politicians, no more compromising on principle. We burn it down and build something better. Something better, Taesung repeated. In my world, that's not easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. She moved closer. But you have resources, intelligence, and now you have me. We can do this. He stood up, and suddenly they were very close, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. You realize you're talking about starting a war. You're the one who said let them come. I did, didn't I? His smile was brief, but genuine. All right. Let's do this properly. Come meet my team. Taesung's office was 3 times the size of the guest room, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. 4 people were gathered around a conference table, 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in dark suits, all watching Jasmine with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. Everyone, this is Jasmine Williams, Taesung said. Jasmine, this is my inner circle. Lee Min-ho, my head of security. A broad-shouldered man with a scar across his left cheek nodded. Park Ji-woo, my intelligence analyst. A thin woman with wire-rimmed glasses raised a hand in greeting. Kim Dae-jung, My legal counsel. An older man with silver hair inclined his head, and Choi Sung-ho, my operations manager. A younger man with sharp features smiled slightly. Wait, Jasmine said. Choi, are you related to… Director Choi is my uncle, Sung-ho said calmly, which is why I left the family business 3 years ago to work for Taesung instead. I prefer working for someone with actual principles. Good to know. Jasmine took a seat at the table. I assume you've all heard what happened tonight? We were monitoring the security feeds, Jiwoo said, her voice crisp and professional. Saw the whole thing. Isabella's assault. Your response. Taesung ending the engagement. It's already spreading through certain channels. How bad? Depends on perspective. About 30% of the guests tonight are sympathetic to Taesung. They saw Isabella's behavior and agreed with his response. 40% are neutral, waiting to see which way the wind blows. The remaining 30% are loyal to Director Choi or afraid of him, and they'll side against us. What about media coverage? Nothing official yet, but social media is exploding. Hashtags, speculation, amateur videos from guests. It's trending in 3 different categories. Jasmine nodded. Then we need to get ahead of it. Do we have any journalists we can trust? Daejung spoke up. I have a contact at the Korea Herald. Good reputation. Fair reporting. She's been wanting an exclusive on the Park family for years. Give it to her, Taesung said. Full story. Our perspective. Emphasis on the assault and racism. Make sure she has witness statements. Already working on it, Jiwoo said, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. I've got 3 witnesses willing to go on record, all respected business leaders who saw everything. Their statements corroborate our version completely. Good. Jasmine turned to Minho. Security. What's our immediate threat level? The scarred man leaned forward. Hi. Director Choi has connections to several organizations that might be willing to take action on his behalf. I've already doubled the perimeter security here and assigned protection details to key personnel. Including me? Especially you. You're the most visible target right now. Minho's expression was grave. I'm assigning 2 of my best people to you, 24/7 coverage until this situation stabilizes. Jasmine wanted to argue but recognized the wisdom in it. Fine. What about proactive measures? Such as? Can we trace Director Choi's current location? Monitor his communications? Jiwoo's fingers paused on her keyboard. That's borderline illegal. So is bribing government officials, but he does it every day, Jasmine pointed out. I'm not saying we use it in court. I'm saying we use it to anticipate his next move. Jiwoo looked at Taesung, who nodded once. She resumed typing. I can have surveillance in place within 2 hours. Phone taps will take longer, maybe 6 hours. Do it. Taesung turned to Sung-ho. You know your uncle better than any of us. What's his most likely response? Sung-ho didn't hesitate. He'll try to destroy your business first. He'll use his political connections to launch investigations, freeze assets, tie you up in legal battles that drain your resources. While you're focused on that, he'll work on turning your allies against you. Promises, threats, whatever it takes. And if all that fails? He paused. He'll send someone after Jasmine. Not to kill her, but to hurt her badly enough that you'll back down. The room went quiet. He won't get that far, Minho said flatly. No one touches her. Agreed, Taesung said. But we need to assume he'll try, which means we need to move first. Jasmine suggested we expose his corruption, anonymously through his enemies in law enforcement. Thoughts? Daejung frowned. It's risky. If they trace it back to us. They won't, Jiwoo interrupted. I can route it through so many layers they'd need a year and unlimited resources to track it. And even then, all they'd find is that it came from someone inside the government itself. Make it look like an internal leak, Jasmine said, seeing the strategy. Someone in his own office getting cold feet and turning on him. Exactly. I can plant evidence suggesting one of his junior staffers has been collecting information for months, even create a digital trail showing them accessing sensitive files. That staffer will be in danger, Taesung pointed out. Only if Director Choi believes it, Jiwoo said, and we can send anonymous warnings to the staffer as well. Give them a chance to get out before the hammer falls. Taesung considered this. All right, but make sure the evidence we leak is ironclad. I want prosecutors to have no choice but to investigate. Bank records, recorded conversations, documents with his signature. I have most of that already, Jiwoo admitted. I've been keeping files on all our business partners. Insurance policy. Of course you have. Taesung almost smiled. How long until you can package it for delivery? 3 hours, maybe 4. I need to verify everything, create the false trail, and identify the best recipients. Do it. Next item. Our business allies. Some of them will be wavering after tonight. We need to shore up those relationships immediately. Seung-ho nodded. I've already started making calls. The general consensus is that people respect what you did. Standing up for principle, defending someone who saved your life, but they're also scared of Director Choi's retaliation. They want to know you have a plan. Tell them we do. Tell them we're going on offense, not defense. And tell them that anyone who stands with us will be protected and rewarded. Anyone who sides against us. Taesung let the implication hang. Understood. I'll have preliminary reports by morning on who's solid, who's wavering, and who's lost. Good. Taesung glanced around the table. Anything else we're missing? Jasmine raised her hand slightly. Isabella herself. She's vindictive, and she's humiliated. Even if her father backs off, she might try something independently. True, Minho said. I'll add her to the surveillance list. If she so much as looks at a weapon, we'll know about it. And one more thing, Jasmine added. We need to consider the possibility that this isn't just about the Choi family. Tonight's events create an opportunity for your other enemies. Anyone with a grudge or an agenda might see this as the perfect time to strike while you're distracted. The room sobered at that thought. She's right, Daijung said. We need to reach out to our rivals, the ones we have truces with, and make sure they understand this is a contained situation. The last thing we need is a multi-front war. I'll handle that personally, Taesung said. I have relationships with most of the major players. They'll listen. They spent the next hour going over details, assigning tasks, creating contingency plans. Jasmine watched Taesung work with quiet admiration. This was his element. Strategy, leadership, the careful orchestration of resources and relationships. He commanded respect without demanding it, listened to advice without being weak, and made decisions with confidence tempered by wisdom. This was the man who'd built an empire, and now he'd risked it all for her. Finally, around midnight, Taesung called the meeting to an end. Get to work. I want updates every 6 hours until this situation stabilizes. And remember, operational security is paramount. No communications that aren't encrypted, no meetings in unsecured locations, and trust no one outside this room. The team dispersed efficiently, leaving Jasmine and Taesung alone in the office. You should get some rest, he said, moving to pour himself a drink from the bar cart. It's going to be a long few days. I'm not tired. Jasmine walked to the windows, looking out at Seoul's nighttime panorama. I'm too wired. Adrenaline. It'll crash eventually. He came to stand beside her, 2 glasses of whiskey in hand. He offered her one. She accepted it. Thank you. For everything tonight. You keep thanking me. I'm the reason you're in danger in the first place. No, Isabella is the reason I'm in danger. You're the reason I'm still standing. She sipped the whiskey, felt it burn pleasantly down her throat. Can I ask you something? Anything? When did you know? That you wanted to end the engagement, I mean. Was it really tonight? Or was this building for a while? Taesung was quiet for a long moment. I knew the moment I agreed to it that it was wrong. Isabella and I were never going to work. She wanted a title, status, money. I wanted political connections and an alliance with her father. It was purely transactional. Then why go through with it? Because that's how this world works. Strategic marriages, alliances of convenience, sacrificing personal happiness for business advantage. He drained half his glass in one swallow. My father did it. His father did it. I thought I could do it too. But you couldn't. No. Because 3 years ago, a woman I'd never met threw herself in front of a bullet for me, and it changed something fundamental in how I see the world. He turned to look at her. You acted on principle, on instinct, on basic human decency. No calculation, no strategy, just goodness. And it made me realize how far I'd strayed from anything resembling that. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. I'm not that noble. I've done plenty of things I'm not proud of. Haven't we all? But when it mattered most, when your life was on the line, you chose to save someone else. That says everything about who you are. He set his glass down on the windowsill. I spent 3 years trying to pay back that debt while keeping you at a distance, telling myself it was safer for you if you weren't close to me. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was afraid of what it meant, caring about someone more than I cared about my empire. And now? Now I've made my choice, and I'm not taking it back. His voice was firm, certain. Whatever comes next, we face it together. If you'll have me. Jasmine looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd just destroyed his political future, who'd publicly humiliated Seoul's elite, who'd started a war he might not win, all because someone had hurt her. It was insane, reckless, completely contrary to everything he'd spent 8 years building, and it was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. You're sure about this? She asked quietly. Because once we go down this road, there's no going back. We'll be bound together. In business, in danger, maybe in everything. I'm sure. No hesitation. Your empire could fall. You could lose everything. I could. Or I could build something better, something real. He reached out carefully and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You asked me when I knew I wanted to end the engagement. The real answer is the first time I saw you across a crowded room and realized I'd been looking for excuses to be near you for 3 years. The first time I caught myself thinking about you instead of business. The first time I imagined a future that included you as more than just someone I owed a debt to. Jasmine's heart hammered against her ribs. Taesung. You don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated, dangerous, probably ill-advised, but I need you to know where I stand. Not as your employer or your debtor or your protector. Just as a man who's in love with you and has been for longer than he wanted to admit. The words hung in the air between them, honest and raw and terrifying. Jasmine set her glass down beside his, her hands trembling slightly. 3 years. 3 years of professional distance, of careful boundaries, of pretending the connection between them was anything less than it was. She was done pretending. I saved your life because something in me recognized something in you, she said slowly, even before I knew your name, or your history, or what you'd become to me. And every day since then, I've been trying to convince myself that connection wasn't real, that it was just trauma bonding or gratitude or proximity. And now I think we've both been lying to ourselves. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. I'm in love with you too, even though you're dangerous and complicated and everything I should run away from. I'm in love with you. Taesung's eyes closed briefly, as if in relief or prayer. When they opened again, they were blazing. Say that again. I love you. He kissed her. It was nothing like she'd imagined during all those nights lying awake thinking about him. It was better. Fierce and gentle at once, desperate and controlled. 3 years of longing compressed into a single moment. His hands came up to frame her face, his touch reverent despite the intensity of the kiss. And she melted into him, her fingers curling into his shirt. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Taesung rested his forehead against hers. We're going to get through this, he murmured, whatever Director Choi throws at us. Whatever happens next, we're going to survive it. Together. Together, Jasmine agreed. Then, more pragmatically, though we should probably sleep at some point. Strategic thinking requires actual rest. He laughed quietly, always so practical. Someone has to be. You just started a war over me. The least I can do is keep us both alive through it. Fair point. He kissed her forehead, then stepped back reluctantly. There are several guest rooms. Pick whichever one you want. I'll be in my room if you need anything, and Minho's team will be stationed throughout the house. What about you? When are you sleeping? Later. I have calls to make first. Allies to reassure, enemies to warn off. It'll take a few hours. Jasmine wanted to argue but recognized the necessity. Fine, but you need to rest too. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Yes, ma'am. His tone was teasing, but his eyes were warm. Get some sleep, Jasmine. Tomorrow we start the real battle. She nodded and headed for the door, then paused and looked back. Taesung? Yes? Thank you. Not just for tonight, but for all of it. For saving my life in New York by paying for my medical care, for bringing me to Seoul, for giving me a chance when you didn't have to. I know I never really said it before. You didn't have to. You said it by staying, by being brilliant and brave and refusing to run when things got complicated. He smiled slightly. Sleep well. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Jasmine made her way to the guest room, her mind still reeling from everything that had happened in the past few hours. She changed into the soft pajamas someone had left on the bed, brushed her teeth with the new toothbrush in the attached bathroom, and climbed under the covers. Sleep should have been impossible. But exhaustion finally caught up with her, and she drifted off thinking about the man down the hall who'd risked everything for her, and wondering what tomorrow would bring. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The party. Isabella's attack. Taesung's confession. The kiss. Oh God. The kiss. Jasmine sat up, running her hands through her tangled hair. Her phone showed 8:47 a.m. and 17 missed messages. Most were from the catering company asking where she was. 2 were from friends asking if the rumors they'd heard were true. 1 was from an unknown number that simply said, "Watch your back." She deleted that one immediately and made a mental note to tell Minho about it. A knock on the door made her jump. Jasmine, are you awake? Jiwoo's voice. Yeah, come in. The intelligence analyst entered carrying a tablet and looking like she hadn't slept at all. Morning. Sorry to wake you, but we have developments. Good or bad? Mixed. The Korea Herald published our story an hour ago. Front page, digital and print. Mafia air ends engagement over Fiancée's racist attack. They included witness statements, photos from the party, everything. It's trending #1 nationwide. Jasmine's stomach clenched. And the reaction? Surprisingly positive, actually. About 60% of comments are praising Taesung for standing up against racism. 20% are criticizing him for ending the engagement publicly. The remaining 20% are conspiracy theories or don't cares. Jiwoo swiped through screens. Several prominent activists have shared the article with supportive statements. A few celebrities, too. It's generating a lot of goodwill. What about Director Choi? He released a statement 2 hours ago calling Taesung's behavior unstable and concerning. He's spinning this as a mental health crisis brought on by business stress. Claims Isabella was trying to help clean up the wine spill when Taesung overreacted violently. That's bullshit. There are videos. I know, which is why his statement isn't getting much traction. But it shows he's going on the defensive, which means he's worried. Jiwoo's smile was sharp. Also, I completed the package for the prosecutors last night. It's been delivered anonymously to 3 different law enforcement officials, all people with grudges against Director Choi and reputations for integrity. They should receive it within the hour. What exactly did you send them? Bank records showing $12 million in unreported income over the past 4 years, recorded phone conversations discussing bribes and favors, emails coordinating illegal activities with known criminals, and my personal favorite, a detailed ledger of every bribe he's taken, complete with names, dates, and amounts. Jiwoo's expression was satisfied. It's enough to launch a major investigation at minimum, possibly enough for immediate arrests. Jasmine whistled low. You don't mess around. Neither does he. This needed to be overwhelming. Too much evidence to ignore or bury. Jiwoo glanced at her tablet again. Oh, and we intercepted some communications from Isabella's phone last night. She's furious, as expected, but also planning something. We're not sure what yet, but Minho's team is monitoring her closely. Good. What about Taesung? In his office with Daejung and Seung-ho, they've been on calls all night shoring up alliances. So far, we've retained about 70% of our business partners, lost 20% to fear of Director Choi. The remaining 10% are still deciding. Jiwoo headed for the door. Get dressed and come down for breakfast. We're having a full team meeting in 30 minutes to go over next steps. After she left, Jasmine showered quickly and dressed in clothes from the closet. Someone had brought her things from her apartment overnight. She tried not to think too hard about Taesung's people having access to her home, focusing instead on the fact that it meant he was serious about protecting her. Downstairs, the dining room had been converted into a war room. Laptops and tablets covered the table, alongside plates of food no one seemed to be eating. Taesung stood at the head of the table looking tired but focused, still wearing yesterday's shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked up when she entered, and something warm flickered in his expression. "Good morning. Coffee? Please." She accepted the mug he poured, their fingers brushing briefly. "Jiwoo caught me up on developments. Sounds like we're making progress." "Some." Taesung gestured for her to sit beside him. "But we're also seeing the beginning of Director Choi's counterattack. 3 government agencies launched investigations into Park Industries this morning: tax compliance, labor practices, and environmental regulations. All complaints filed anonymously, but clearly coordinated. Can they actually find anything? Possibly. We're not perfect. But nothing that would be more than fines and bad publicity." Daejung spoke up from across the table. "The real goal is to tie us up in bureaucratic nightmares and drain our resources defending ourselves." "Then we don't fight every battle," Jasmine said. "We pick the ones that matter and let the rest play out. If they're fines we can afford, we pay them and move on. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing us scramble." Taesung nodded slowly. "I like that. Refuse to be distracted by small attacks." "Exactly. What else?" Over the next hour, they reviewed everything: media strategy, security protocols, business continuity plans, legal defenses. Every contingency had a contingency. Every weakness was being shored up. Jasmine contributed where she could, her analytical mind finding patterns and vulnerabilities the others might have missed. Around 10 a.m., Jiwoo's laptop pinged urgently. She read the screen, her eyes widening. "The prosecutors just executed search warrants on Director Choi's office and home. They're seizing records and electronics. It's happening." The room erupted in controlled celebration. This was the first major offensive strike, and it had landed perfectly. But Taesung remained serious. "This is where it gets dangerous. A cornered animal is unpredictable. Director Choi will know this came from somewhere, and he'll lash out. Everyone needs to be on highest alert." As if summoned by his words, Minho burst into the room. "We have a situation. Isabella just arrived at the front gate with about 20 people. Reporters, cameras, the works. She's demanding to speak with Taesung and making wild accusations." They rushed to the security room, where monitors showed Isabella standing at the estate's entrance, dressed in black, her face tear-stained but defiant. Cameras surrounded her, and she was speaking into microphones thrust in her direction. "Turn up the audio," Taesung commanded. Isabella's voice filled the room, shrill and emotional. "He's been having an affair with that woman for years. He brought her here from America and hid her away like some secret mistress. Last night was just him finally getting caught, and he's trying to destroy my family to cover it up." "That's a lie," Jasmine said flatly. "I know, but it's a good lie." Taesung's jaw was tight. Plausible enough that some people will believe it, sensational enough that it'll spread rapidly. On screen, Isabella continued, "I have evidence, text messages, financial records, proof that he's been supporting her for years while lying to me, to my family, to everyone. Taesung Park is a liar and a cheat, and I won't let him destroy my father's reputation to hide his own sins." "Should I send security to remove her?" Minho asked. "No." Taesung's voice was calm. "That would just feed her narrative, the guilty man silencing his accuser. Let her talk. We'll respond properly." "How?" Jasmine asked. "With the truth. All of it." He turned to face her. "I'm going to hold a press conference this afternoon. I'm going to tell them everything. How you saved my life. Why I brought you to Seoul. What our relationship really is. No more secrets. No more hiding." "That's risky. You'll be exposing yourself." "I'm already exposed. Isabella made sure of that. He touched her hand briefly. But I need your permission. This will put you even more in the spotlight. Your face, your name, your whole story will be public knowledge. Jasmine thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. Do it. We control the narrative. Or it controls us. You're sure? I'm sure. Besides, I'm getting tired of hiding. She smiled slightly. Let's show them who we really are. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the grand ballroom where, less than 24 hours ago, Taesung had ended his engagement. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. News crews packed the space, cameras positioned to capture every angle. Print journalists filled the seats. Social media influencers live-streamed to thousands of followers. This wasn't just a local story anymore. It had gone national, maybe international. Jasmine stood backstage with Taesung, both dressed professionally, but not overly formal. Daijung was going over talking points, but Taesung waved him off. I know what to say. I've been practicing this speech in my head for 3 years. Just remember, Daejung cautioned, anything you say can be used against you legally. Be honest, but careful. Careful honesty. Got it. Taesung looked at Jasmine. Ready? As I'll ever be. They walked out together to an explosion of camera flashes and shouted questions. Taesung raised a hand for quiet, and eventually the room settled. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice steady and clear. I'm sure you've all heard various versions of what happened last night at my engagement party. I'm here to give you the truth, completely and without reservation. He paused, making eye contact with cameras and reporters. 3 years ago, I was in New York City on business when my life was threatened. Armed men attempted to kill me in a restaurant. They would have succeeded if not for the bravery of one person, Jasmine Williams, who was working as a waitress that night. Taesung gestured to Jasmine, who stepped forward slightly. Ms. Williams didn't know who I was. She didn't know anything about me or my business. But when she saw a gun aimed at me, she didn't hesitate. She threw herself between me and the shooter. She took a bullet meant for me, and nearly died saving my life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I brought her to Seoul after her recovery, Taesung continued. I paid for her medical care, her education, and offered her employment in my company because I owed her a debt I could never fully repay. She became one of our most valuable security analysts, and over time, she became something more. A friend, a trusted advisor, and eventually, someone I fell in love with. The murmurs grew louder. For 3 years, I kept these feelings private. I maintained professional distance. I entered into an engagement with Isabella Choi that was strategic rather than romantic. Last night, when Isabella physically attacked Ms. Williams and made racist statements in front of hundreds of witnesses, I had a choice to make. Taesung's voice grew stronger, more passionate. I could protect my political alliances, my business interests, and my comfortable life by looking the other way. Or I could stand up for what's right, defend someone who'd sacrificed for me, and acknowledge the truth I'd been running from for years. I chose the latter. I ended my engagement because Isabella's actions revealed a character incompatible with my values. Not because of an affair, not because I was caught, but because I finally had the courage to prioritize integrity over convenience. He reached out, and Jasmine took his hand. They faced the cameras together. I'm in love with Jasmine Williams. I have been for longer than I wanted to admit. And I'm done apologizing for it or hiding it. What we have is real, it's honest, and it's worth more than any political alliance or business deal. The room exploded with questions, but Taesung held up his hand again. I know there are allegations about my family's business practices. I know Director Choi is trying to paint this as a cover-up for criminal activity. All I can say is that I've been working for 8 years to transform my father's legacy into something more legitimate, more ethical. I'm not perfect. Neither is my company, but I'm committed to doing better, being better, and building a future I can be proud of. He looked directly into the central camera. To Director Choi and Isabella, I bear you no ill will, but I will defend myself and the people I care about. Your attacks won't work. Your lies won't stick. The truth is stronger than your spin. Taesung squeezed Jasmine's hand, and to everyone watching, I know this is messy and complicated and probably not the fairy tale you expected. But it's real. And sometimes real love requires sacrifice. Sometimes it requires standing up to powerful people. Sometimes it requires risking everything you've built for one person who matters more than all of it combined. He smiled then, genuine and warm. I'd make the same choice again in a heartbeat. The press conference dissolved into chaos after that. Everyone shouting questions, cameras flashing, journalists scrambling to file their stories first. But Taesung and Jasmine walked off stage together, hands still linked, facing whatever came next as a united front. In the security room, Minho high-fived Ji-woo. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Social media is going insane, Ji-woo reported, scrolling through feeds. The hashtags are all trending. Public opinion is swinging hard in our favor. People love a good romance story, especially one with that much honesty and vulnerability. What about Director Choi? Daejung asked. No official response yet, but our surveillance shows he's in crisis mode. Lots of calls, lots of panic. The search warrants hit him hard, and now this press conference has turned public opinion against him. He's losing control of the narrative. Good. Minho's expression was grim. But we still need maximum security. Desperate people do desperate things. He was right to worry. That night, around 11 p.m., the attack came. Jasmine was in her room, her new permanent room in Taesung's estate, when alarms shrieked through the house. She bolted upright, adrenaline spiking just as her door burst open. Get down! Minho roared, pulling her to the floor as gunfire erupted somewhere outside. What's happening? Armed assault, 6 hostiles at the east perimeter. Stay low. Through the window, Jasmine could see muzzle flashes in the darkness. Taesung's security team was returning fire, the sound deafening even from inside. Where's Taesung? Secure location. My job is keeping you safe. Minho was already moving, pulling her toward the hallway. We're getting you to the safe room. They ran through the mansion, Minho's bulk shielding her body, other security personnel converging on their position. The safe room was a reinforced bunker in the basement, and when they reached it, Taesung was already there, pacing like a caged tiger. He grabbed Jasmine the moment she entered, pulling her into his arms. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. What about you? Fine. His jaw was tight with fury. This was Director Choi, had to be. Probably, Minho confirmed. But professional hitters, not just random thugs. They knew our security patterns, came in at the weakest point. Casualties? 2 of theirs down, none of ours. The rest retreated when they realized we were prepared. We're sweeping the grounds now. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes total, but it changed everything. This was no longer a political battle or a war of words. Director Choi had tried to kill them. We need to end this, Taesung said quietly, still holding Jasmine, before someone actually dies. Agreed, she said. But how? Over the next week, they systematically dismantled Director Choi's power base. The prosecutor's investigation expanded rapidly, uncovering more evidence of corruption than even Ji-woo had provided. Director Choi's allies in the National Assembly began distancing themselves. His business partners withdrew support. His media connections turned against him. Isabella, facing her own legal troubles for assault, fled to Paris to stay with relatives. One by one, the pieces fell. And through it all, Taesung and Jasmine worked side by side, planning, strategizing, building something new from the ashes of the old alliances. 3 months after that fateful engagement party, Director Choi resigned from the National Assembly in disgrace. Criminal charges were pending. His empire was in ruins. Taesung stood on the balcony of his office, watching the sunset paint Seoul in shades of gold and crimson. Jasmine joined him, sliding under his arm naturally. It's over, she said softly. This part is. There'll be other battles. I know, but we'll face them together. He kissed the top of her head. Together. I like the sound of that. Me too. She leaned into him, feeling safe and home and exactly where she belonged. So what now? Now? Taesung considered. Now we build something better. A company that operates with integrity. A life that makes sense. A future worth fighting for. Sounds perfect. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. Taesung laughed quietly, the sound warm and genuine. You know, 3 years ago, I would have said, love was a weakness, a liability in my world. And now? Now I think it's the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile. He turned to face her, his eyes serious. I love you, Jasmine Williams. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I was worth saving that night in New York. She smiled, reaching up to cup his face. You already have, Taesung Park. You already have. They kissed as the sun set over Seoul, two people who'd found each other across impossible circumstances, who'd fought against the world and won, who'd chosen love over power and discovered that love was the greatest power of all. And in the city below, life went on. But for Taesung and Jasmine, everything had changed. They'd started with a bullet and a debt. They'd built a future worth defending. And they were just getting started.